Good morning. I am H. Robert Silverstein, MD, for the Preventive Medicine Center, West Hartford Cable Access TV. If you have any questions about this program, you may call me at the office, which is 860-549-3444. We have an answering service, so just leave a message. Now, any number of issues that I want to talk about today. For instance, I'm going to tell you how I treat my patients. This is not really a recommendation for medical therapy. This is how I treat my patients. So if a person, Omicron is much more benign than the previous variants. They were much more severe and required a treatment program. I was the person who used various treatments, and they are outlined on the website of the Preventive Medicine Center. But at the present time, because of the more benign nature of the Omicron variants, which keep changing, by the way, I'm sure you know that, I'm using what turns out to be in the usual patient 140 milligrams of prednisone spread over 5 to 7 days. That would be 20 milligrams of prednisone a day for 7 days, or 20 milligrams of prednisone twice a day for 2 days, and then 20 milligrams a day for 3 more days. So that's the 5-day and the 7-day treatment. I had originally suggested using prednisolone, which is a slightly lower dose, but just as effective version. But it turns out prednisolone is very expensive. And so I quit ordering prednisolone and now order just prednisone. There are other things that I add to that. For instance, if a person has a real deep bronchitis, then I will order a steroid inhaler, such as the brand Asmanex or any generic equivalent. Also called Qvar is another version of just a steroid inhaler. On the other hand, insurance companies are, you hear me pausing or you don't hear me. I was going to say they're a PETA, a pain in the rear end. That may be because I'm simply unskilled at dealing with it, but I really don't like the way one company requires this and another one requires that. Fortunately, my electronic medical record sort of shows me what the preferred versions are. My electronic medical record, which we've had since 2007 and predated the arrival of electronic medical records, certainly at St. Francis Hospital. And I don't know about, I'm certain about UConn, but also probably even Hartford Hospital. I like to be first in fashion, you know me. Anyhow, that's pretty much it about the coronavirus. Now, one of the things I wanted to talk about was long COVID, long coronavirus complications. There are effective treatments for that. Nattokinase, ubiquinol, Gotukola, Gotukola, NAC, guanfacine. Guanfacine is a prescription item. All the others of these are over the counter. You can look this up on your own. Now, I don't believe, put that in quotes, everything that Life Extension Foundation writes. But on the other hand, some of the stuff they write is pretty good. So I do say that if you're curious, you can go to lef.org and read at least what they have to say, which is pretty much what I just said. Some of these things I recommend because they're safe. They've been around for a long time. And as I often use the quote, it's like chicken soup. It couldn't hurt. Now, it's not like I believe that any medicine or herb or supplement or vitamin is good for you all the time or in a particular dose. And by the way, if you recall, my belief is that you should only take vitamins and supplements 5 days a week in order to give the body a break and prevent what one might call adaptation. The body gets used to it and therefore is no longer sensitive to it. So as a result, I always say, give the body a break and take supplements 5 days a week. Virtually all the vitamin companies recommend their supplements every day. I don't think that's a good idea. First of all, everything ought to be done as naturally as possible. One of the things, I have a picture in my office, and it's a picture of a wolf. And the wolf has his mouth open. And what I point out to patients is that wolf has fangs and claws, can safely digest rotten meat, has sharp teeth all the way to the back, has a jaw that comes down like a scissors action. On the other hand, human beings like chimpanzees and gorillas have no fangs and claws, cannot safely digest rotten meat, have an enzyme in our salivary glands for digesting plant food, where food first comes in, have teeth that are flat for grinding, and has a jaw action that is not scissors action. Now, what's my point? My point is that the human body is essentially vegan vegetarian. That need not be 100%, but it ought to be pretty close to 100%. So if you are lean and trim, now what do I mean by trim? I mean by trim, when you look down at your tummy, if you can see where the muscles meet the muscles, that's called clear lines of definition and demarcation, which is a pretty high rung to achieve and takes lots of exercise. But if you can see that, then you can have animal protein probably 3 times a week, the size of your palm. My palm for me, your palm for you, if you have abdominal clear lines of definition up to 3 times a week. If you're not, then you reduce it to about once a week. Now, how many meals are there in a week? Let's just say, if you're not doing intermittent fasting, which I do think is a good idea, stopping eating 6 hours before bedtime is a really good idea. I have some patients who eat once a day, and I'm impressed with the benefits of that. That is intermittent fasting. But certainly a portion of intermittent fasting is stopping eating 6 hours before bedtime. That does a whole lot of good for a whole lot of different conditions, particularly acid reflux, chest discomfort, burning, even nasal congestion, ear congestion, and so on. So the human body is adapted to grains, vegetables, beans, fruit, nuts, and seeds, at least 19 of 21 meals, 18 to 19 of 21 meals a week, and a palm-sized serving of wild-caught fish or free-range chicken or cage-free eggs or bison. And you heard me say all. You did not hear me say and. The animal protein, a total of 1 to 3 times a week. If you want to be vegan vegetarian, that's fine with me. Just take some B12 and be sure that you monitor or have your bone density monitored. As close as you can get to vegan is the right idea. Now, what else did I want to talk about? Long COVID. So the long COVID treatment is N-acetylcysteine, NAC, guanfacine, alpha-lipoic acid, pycnogenol, ubiquinol, and nattokinase. If you contract the coronavirus, you can largely prevent the clotting aspects. I believe you can largely prevent the clotting aspect, by taking nattokinase, which is a natural enzyme to dissolve clot formation within the body while you have that. I feel that people have been told and ordered to take too many vaccines. I'm entirely a believer in people having the right to decide for themselves. If they want to do it, it's okay with me. If they don't want to do it, that's okay with me too. Now let's back up, and I've said this before, but I'll say it again. I don't think that anybody under the age of 60, or I'll draw a number at 55, anyone under the age of 55 really needed any of the vaccines for the coronavirus. Now, I do believe that if you caught the coronavirus infection, you could be treated. By the way, if there's anybody here who has connections to the Chinese government, let them know that there is this very simple prednisone treatment, which will prevent a vast amount of disease and death in China with the loosening of the permissions to be out and about and not requiring people to be locked in their home and the country on shutdown. The 140 milligrams, now, I'm not sure people are now smaller in China than they used to be. There was an old saying, it sounds kind of politically incorrect, but the saying was this: you never saw a fat Chinaman. That is no longer true. The Chinese, like every other nation on earth, have grown, quote, wealthy, quote, to the point where obesity is now a problem in China. So depending upon the weight, age, and so on, the dose of prednisone would need to be adjusted. But like I said, if you are treated within the first 3 days, crucial statement, treated within the first 3 days, crucial statement, treated within the first 3 days, that makes an enormous difference in how you tolerate your Omicron coronavirus infection. Next, cholesterol. High cholesterol, like diabetes, like high blood pressure, is a 95% preventable and curable condition. Diseases are made to happen. They can be made to unhappen. The best thing we could do to prevent diseases, I've already discussed it in part separately. Be lean and trim, as close to abdominal clear lines of definition and demarcation as you can get. And honestly, I'm not there and should be. That takes exercise, which I have increased and noted some improvements in my configuration. Abdominal clear lines of definition and demarcation. If the nation were, quote, trim, a vast number of diseases would go away. In addition, being essentially vegan, but by the way, Dunkin' Donuts and Wonder Bread are both vegan. That's not what I'm recommending. I'm recommending, quote, foods exactly as they grow up out of the ground and in the field. Brown rice, not white rice. Brown rice better than brown rice pasta. All the vegetables except the potato family. All the different beans except not too many soybeans. Fruit, especially berries, really rely on berries. They are the lowest carbohydrate fruit. Somebody's going to argue with me about that. Grains, vegetables, beans, fruit, nuts, about 6 to 8 nuts a day, not more. You only need a small handful, small, like that, small handful in here. 6 to 8 nuts a day, almonds, pecans, walnuts, filberts, and 2 Brazil nuts for the selenium to prevent prostate cancer and probably in part breast cancer. And that is my breakfast. What is my breakfast and lunch? Really easy. Breakfast is a small to medium handful of nuts as I put them in my hand, toss them in my mouth, walk out the door, and get in the car to drive to work. Now, that's not the ideal. The ideal is to sit down and have a breakfast. But most of us now set ourselves up so that we are time squeezed. And if you're having that time squeezed life, what I just gave you is my suggestion. Small handful of almonds, pecans, walnuts, filberts, and 2 Brazil nuts a day. And the reason I say that, and that's enough, is because we're not nearly as physical and don't need that hearty breakfast. There's an old phrase that is correct, used to be correct. Breakfast like a king, lunch like a prince, and dinner like a pauper, which says get most of your calories in the morning, some at noontime, and less at dinner time. That is a good idea just in general, but the fact of the matter is, since we're not so physical in the morning, we don't really need those high calorie foods. We'll get to exercise in a minute. So grains, vegetables, beans, fruit, nuts, and seeds, pumpkin seeds, poppy seeds, sunflower seeds. You need a mixture, and you need a mixture of preparations. I have some cookbooks over here. How to cook with miso. The Changing Seasons Cookbook. This is the best cookbook. The Book of Whole Meals. This one is not so great because it has too much wheat and too much processed foods in it, but it's not that bad. Barley, rice, celery, tarragon. Here's couscous with chickpeas. Well, I don't recommend couscous because I don't recommend wheat. Apple Delight, 2 pounds of McIntosh apples. By the way, I love Maccoon or McCowan apples. 1 cinnamon stick in water. Okay, that sounds. String beans tahini. That's okay. Kasha. All those are good recipes. Changing Seasons Cookbook. I'm not sure that you can find that now, but you can probably find the recipes in it. Remember the concept. The concept is unprocessed foods. And like I say avoid wheat. I can give you my reasons, but I'm not going to deal with that now. Let's talk about exercise. This is a Lecky walking stick. You hold it like this. You run your hand through this loop. And these are neoprene covered hand weights. And the reason I picked the neoprene is their handle is a little fatter, plus the fact the neoprene makes it not feel so cold because it doesn't not being bare metal, it doesn't take the heat away from your hand quickly, so it feels like it's comfortable temperature. You can do the Nordic track walking thing with these hand weights. It's important to go full forward and full backward extension. You can stand up and march in place and do this exercise for 1 minute. Somebody came out with a study for an idea that I've been saying for forever. You really can exercise 1 minute at a time. Now, they were talking about getting your heart rate up really high. That's not a bad idea, but on the other hand, I don't want people hurting themselves. If you just do that Nordic walking, by the way, the Nordic walking, you do that forward extension and you do the rear extension. It's not right here in front of you like this, it's full extension. And then you push and pull on the sticks as you plant them on the floors. I've been doing that. They tore down the parking garage at St. Francis. So as a result, they put patients parking in front of my building, the 1000 Asylum building. I just love that building architecturally. It's from the 1940s, and it's got that what I call federal look. I don't know if that's the right look for it, right word for it, but It's a gorgeous building. The interior is gray marble, which I don't really like. They could have done better with colors, but that's what was de rigueur in the 1940s, sort of laid back, don't stand out. No, it's not like I want pink and fluorescent yellow, but it's a little bit too laid back for me and dated. On the other hand, I don't want it changed at all. Leave it the way it is. So anyhow, they now put patient parking where I used to be able to walk from just in front of the building to my office, which was maybe 30 yards, 40 yards. And now I have to walk from it is an indoor parking garage. It's about almost a quarter of a mile away. So what I do is I have my Lecky walking sticks and I walk through the hospital. I go to the floors where there isn't much traffic and then plant the sticks and sort of push and pull, full extension in the back, full extension in the front, as I walk from the parking garage to my office. And when I get there, I'm sweating or warm enough. I'm not actually sweating, that I need to take off my jacket, my sweater, and so on, because I've done enough work that I'm starting to heat up like one does with exercise. So Nordic walking has been defined as the best exercise. There is no the best exercise, but it's a really good one. And I strongly recommend it. So rush over to REI, a business that I like a lot. I find the people there just so personable and helpful. Get yourself some Lecky, L-E-K-I walking sticks. Of course, you can order them online if you will. But so to speak, help the brothers and sisters out at REI. Somebody made the joke that says that's return everything immediately. That's what REI stands for. Because they have an excellent return policy. So get yourself some Lecky walking sticks and then do the Nordic walking. But remember also with the neoprene weights, you can do that Nordic walking fashion for 1 minute and sit down. And you don't have to jerk hard and fast and so on and end up hurting yourself. Just do everything nice and calm and so on. And you can use 3-pound weights or 2-pound weights or 5-pound weights or 10-pound weights. And I have, what do I have? I have 5s. Do I have 3s? No, I have 5s and 10s here in my kitchen, which is where I'm recording. Can you see the pretty flowers? I found that Stop and Shop has the best flowers that last the longest. Trader Joe's also has nice flowers, but they don't last nearly as long. And you might say, yes, use those fertilizer packs that come with it. The ones from Stop and Shop don't need the fertilizer more than the first one. And like I said, the flowers last a long time, and I think they have better grouping, color selections than other places. All right, enough advertising for Stop and Shop, which I'm not advertising, I'm letting you know. As you know, my insecurity comes out where I make recommendations and I want to be, quote, first in fashion, quote. In other words, I need to be smarter, ahead, and so on. And people are probably out there laughing at me for thinking, he's not smarter, he's not first in fashion, he's not ahead of anybody else. And one of the things I do tell the truth about, very little do I come up with that's entirely original with me. What I do is synthesize and integrate information that other people have. And if I have a skill, it's simply my ability to pick out, quote, the real deal, at least I think so, from the chaff that is not as effective. All right, going on. Oh, saving money on heat. I have a Vornado. Vornado is to me has always been high quality, but I think their quality has gone down. But anyhow, I now have an electric heater in my kitchen so that I do not use my natural gas heating in the kitchen. Now, the heat comes on about 5 o'clock in the morning. I turn the temperature down to 63 at night in the kitchen. And then at 5 o'clock in the morning on Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, when I'm home, the heat comes on and heats the kitchen up. So when I walk in, it's 70 degrees, and then I turn the heat back down to 63. So I'm no longer using gas. But what I have is a small Vornado fan electric heater that I'm heating this kitchen with. I close the doors to the rest of the house. And so I have this single space that I'm heating with that small electric fan. In addition, I have an Ororo, O-R-O-R-O, Ororo vest that I put on. And that has battery packs in it and heating elements. And you push a button over here and it turns it on, and you can adjust the heat to mild or more or off. And so the battery pack gives you that heat so that you don't even need as much of the electricity. And I bought 2 of the battery packs in case one runs out. Now, the question is, am I actually saving money? That Aurora vest was not cheap. This Vornado electric fan was not cheap. But on the other hand, you've got to think in terms of long term. And that's what I'm trying to tell you, long term. So I think I will save money. In a certain sense, how do I look at it? I look at it is that any money that you spend now, simply forget about it. It's gone. And so anything you save from the future on is the real saving. By the way, my last month, by virtue of doing what I did, my gas bill was lower than last year. Now, I don't know what the temperature difference was between the 2 years, but the fact that I used my Aurora jacket to keep warm, and that I used my Vornado electric heater fan to warm the room. By the way, I'm one of those, quote, cold-blooded types. Everybody else is comfortable and I'm still cold. I don't know what that actually means biologically, but it does mean that I want to heat up. Okay, going on. Cholesterol. I always talk about cholesterol. Take the total cholesterol. Here's where you should be. If you have no documented evidence of hardening of the arteries and you are not diabetic, and I'm aware of the recent information that came out about diabetes not being an increasing risk for hardening of the artery, which is nonsense. But maybe I'm not quoting the study exactly correctly. If you have diabetes, that definitely increases things more rapidly than just if you have high cholesterol or high blood pressure, unless your high blood pressure is astronomical. So take the total cholesterol and subtract the good cholesterol. The good cholesterol is called HDL. Now, why do I do that? The reason is most studies talk about LDL cholesterol, but there are 2 other kinds of cholesterol. One is called IDL and the other one is called VLDL. Well, if you take the total cholesterol and subtract the good cholesterol, you get all 3 of those as a number. It's called non-HDL cholesterol. It is not the good cholesterol. It's all of the bad cholesterol, ATB, all the bad. And I think that's a little more accurate. You can sort of figure physician, it's not a big deal. You can calculate what that is if you know the LDL. But the fact is that total minus good gives you all of the bad. To prevent the future risk of heart disease in well patients, in the seemingly well patients, that number needs to be 90 or less. That's not negotiable. Now, I don't get excited if it's like 95 or or 102, but I still try to achieve that number of 90 or less. Take the total cholesterol, subtract the good cholesterol, the non-HDL cholesterol needs to be 90 or less. If you've had a heart attack, if you have documented hardening of the arteries, if you've had a stroke, if you have diabetes, that number needs to be 75. Now, it has been shown that if you get the cholesterol levels even lower than what I just said, non-HDL cholesterol lower, you do reduce the incidence of heart attack. But those numbers are so tiny that you needn't confuse yourself, so that from the reasonable standpoint, your non-HDL cholesterol should be 90 or less, and it should be 75 or less if you've had a heart attack, angioplasty, open heart surgery for hardening of the arteries, previous stroke due to hardening of the arteries, and so on, or diabetes. All right, enough of that. Wegovy, Ozempic, Mounjaro. Those are once a week injectables that knock out the appetite. They create what I call active disinterest in food. Active disinterest in food. And I've never really liked diet pills or injections, HCG, human chorionic gonadotropin. I never really liked those. But this group of medications is really effective, and I think is the real deal. Now, the point of getting on these medications, Ozempic, Wegovy, Mounjaro, is you will change what you do that has caused the weight gain. It's not just a question of you're going to eat less of the bad things. You need to start eating more of the good things, so that when the injection stops, and that's really the great idea, the injection should stop. When the injections stop, you don't regain your weight because you're eating the wrong thing that made the problem in the first place. That's another thing about being essentially organic, unprocessed, whole foods vegan. Those patients are just thinner in general. I've had a small handful of patients who were vegan who said they followed what I directed and they didn't lose weight. They even occasionally gained weight. Now, the answer was they were eating way too many beans. Beans are both protein and carbohydrate. And of course, you don't want the carbohydrate. Gladiators were called barley men. They ate lentil barley soups. The gladiators were obviously very physically active. But if you look at the statuary of ancient times, where it shows the gladiators, they were massively muscular. So the word burly, which means big and husky, comes from the word barley. So if you're trim, then you eat lentil barley soups to prevent your losing weight and maintaining strength. There are vegan ultra marathoners. They can run 3 marathons in a row. They can run 100, or is it 3 or 5? They can run 100 miles. They are vegan vegetarian. They may use some powdered vegan protein, but the fact of the matter is they do not eat fish or chicken or turkey or meat or cheese or egg. The gladiators ate animal protein 3 times a year. They were 99% vegan vegetarian. And obviously, let's go back to Roman times, they weren't milling the brown rice into white rice. They weren't milling the barley from hulled barley to pearled barley. They were eating it as is. So don't get confused. If you're overweight, I don't want you eating the grains. The grains are carbohydrates, but you do need some protein. Lentils, chickpeas, black-eyed peas, split peas, red kidney beans, white kidney beans, great northern beans, very little soybeans, and etc. beans. So you need about 4 ounces, the average person needs about 4 to 5 ounces of beans a day, and that will be adequate protein. By the way, if you're interested in losing weight, start by having vegetable soup for breakfast. vegetable soup for breakfast. And then you can have some berries in almond milk with 4 walnuts, chopped up walnuts or almonds or pecans um, in that, or you can make a smoothie with some spring mix. Bottom line is be as close to vegan as you can be. Berries, cooked vegetables, vegetable soup and beans to lose weight. Do your exercise. Um, we're getting close to finishing. So that's pretty much it. Good day and God bless you. H. Robert Silverstein, MD, for the Preventive Medicine Center, wishing you a Merry Christmas and a Happy Hanukkah, and also all the other religious holidays, Kwanzaa, and whatever our brother Muslims celebrate. I will see you the next time. If you have questions, call. Wasn't